Hey y'all, if your cornbread keeps coming out dry, watch this video because it's going to fix that forever. I've tested dozens of cornbread recipes over the years, but I always go back to my mom's cornbread recipe. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you what to add, when to add it, and show you how to make the perfect cornbread every single time. All right, y'all. So the first secret that we've got to making the best cornbread that you can ever make is using a cast iron skillet. Now, this is a pretty good size cast iron skillet, so my cornbread's going to be a little thin. The smaller the skillet that you use, the thicker that your cornbread's going to be, or the more mix that you make, the thicker your cornbread's going to be. But for the purposes of this recipe, we're going to stick with the way that I've always done it. So first thing that I like to do is take my cast iron. Now this cast iron is good and seasoned, but I'm going to take and put a little bit of shortening in here. And you can use lard or you can use shortening, but I like to just rub it around, coat everything down real good with it. Because what that's going to do is that's going to keep your cornbread from sticking, and it's going to give you a really good crust on the outside of it. And you can do this with your hand, or I like to do it with a paper towel because it's not quite as messy that way. But just coat that bottom really good with your lard or your shortening, whichever one you decide to use. And now, lots of times, my mother would just take it and she would use cooking oil, and she would just pour some in the pan. And when she did it that way, she would just heat it there on the top of the stove and then pour cornbread mix into it. But this is a little more intensive, but this is how I like to do it. So now we've got our pan done there. I've got our oven started heating at 375 degrees. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this cast iron skillet and I'm going to put it in the oven and let it get hot. And then we'll make our batter for our cornbread. Then we'll take it out of the oven, pour our mixture in. So right now, we're just going to put this in this oven that's preheating. All right. So that's got that part done. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get our cornmeal mix. Now, as y'all probably know, if you've watched any of my videos, I always like to use white lily on everything I do. This is a white lily cornmeal mix. So this has got a little bit of flour and a little bit and cornmeal in it. So we're going to get 2 cups of that. All right, there's 1 cup. And we're going to get us another cup. All right, that's got our 2 cups of cornmeal mix. And we'll just set that to the side right now. And then the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to mix up our wet ingredients. So for our wet ingredients, we've got 1/3 cup of buttermilk. All right, so I've already measured that out and put it in this container. And next thing, we've got 1 egg. So we're going to just pour that egg in there. All right, and then the next thing is we've got 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. We'll just pour that in there. Now, something that I always have done, and a lot of people don't do this, but it's just something that I've always done, is I'll put just a little bit of salt in there. Not very much at all, just a touch of salt. Okay, and then we're going to mix this all up, get everything incorporated in. Make sure your egg's good and beat up. And you'll see your mixture starts to turn kind of yellow when you're getting your egg beat up in there. All right, so we've got that beat up, and you can see that's kind of turned a little bit of a yellow color. So now we're going to pull our cornmeal mix over here, and we're just going to pour that all right into that cornmeal mix. All right, got that part done. All we got to do now is just stir it up. Just use your fork or a big spoon, just whatever you've got that you want to stir with. And be sure you scrape down your sides so you get all your cornmeal incorporated into your wet ingredients. Now, this takes just a minute to do this and get everything going good. Now, if you use my measurements, you shouldn't have to add any more liquid to it. If you use those exact measurements, shouldn't be anything else you have to do to it. All right, so that's got that part mixed up, and that's kind of about your consistency that you want. That it kind of drips off the fork, but it's in big pieces when it comes off the fork. All right, so the only thing we got to wait on now is our pan to finish, or our cast iron skillet to finish heating up, and then we'll be ready for the next step. So our pan's been in the oven there, and it's preheated up to 375, and probably about 10 minutes or so, and it should be ready to be able to take that skillet out and be ready to pour our cornmeal mix into it. So let's see what we're looking like. All right, looks good. So now just remember that skillet's going to be hot, so be real careful with it. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to pour our cornbread mix in. Now I don't know if you can hear it on the camera or not, but that cornmeal mix is sizzling as I pour it in. And that's what you want to be able to hear when you start pouring it in. You want to hear that cornmeal mix making that sizzle sound. And get all of it out that you can. Get it in there. All right, and that's all there is to that. Now we're going to go back in that oven, still at 375. All right, and that's all we do to our cornbread. So now we're going to wait, probably we'll check it in about 20 minutes and see how it's looking, and then we'll go from there. Y'all, when I was a kid, cornbread was one of the things that it was a staple at our house. My mother cooked dinner every night, and there was always a pan of cornbread to go along with it. And so it's something that I grew up eating every day. And again, I pretty much showed you exactly how my mother made it, and it was always really, really good. And several of the things that cornbread I think goes best with is number one, potato soup. And so somewhere down the road, we're going to make a pot of potato soup. Also, another soup that it goes well with is a a vegetable or a vegetable beef or stew. Cornbread in any of those three is just awesome. Also, we would have cornbread, and my dad would take that cornbread later that night and he would put it in a glass and then pour buttermilk over top of it. Now, I was never a buttermilk fan, so that's not something that I ever enjoyed myself, but that was something my dad really liked. And but like I say, cornbread will go with almost anything. You can take this cornbread recipe and make Mexican chili cornbread. Put the chili on top, and make it that way with cheese, and have that as a meal. Just so many things you can do with cornbread. Now, one thing too, of course, I'm making a big pan here tonight, but if you have leftover cornbread, don't throw that cornbread away. Put it in a Ziploc bag, get all the air out of that Ziploc bag, put it in the freezer. Because later down the road, you can use that same leftover cornbread to make you some really, really good chicken and dressing. And again, that's going to be one of our videos coming up sometime here in the next little bit. We're going to do a chicken and dressing. So remember, don't throw that extra cornbread away. Put it up and keep it for later. And some of you may not be old enough to remember this, but the old timers like myself, we remember when I was a kid and would go to my grandmother's, she would always have a plate of cornbread sitting on the table. Now, back in the old days, once breakfast was finished and lunch was finished, they would just take a big tablecloth, a cloth tablecloth, and cover everything up. So that way, as people came in and out throughout the day, if they needed something to eat or wanted something to eat, you go over there and lift that tablecloth up, see what's underneath. Grandmother always kept a bowl of rhubarb on the kitchen table, and was always some biscuits, and like I say, always some cornbread. So you never went hungry back in those days. There was always something on the table to eat. If there was some bacon left over from breakfast or some sausage, there would be that. So that's another memory that making this cornbread has brought back that I remember from when I was a kid. This is the most moist and golden cornbread, and it's that way every single time you make it. Cuts up great, and there's what it looks like on the inside. And I don't know if you can see the steam rising up out of it, but that is going to be delicious. Now, if I'm going to eat just a piece of cornbread by itself, I like to take it and split it open like that and put me a little bit of butter on there, or maybe a whole lot of butter, either way. Let's give just a little more to go on there. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put the top back on. That is so soft and fluffy on the inside. We're going to put that back on just like that. We're going to leave that set for a few minutes, and then we're going to come back and give it a taste. All right, y'all, so it's had a minute for our butter to melt, and man, it smells so good. And I can see that butter just oozing out of the sides of it. So now we're going to take us a bite and see how it tastes. Mm, I'm telling you, if that's not the most perfect cornbread you ever made, then I'm doing something wrong. But with that butter added to it, it's got a great buttery taste to it. Y'all need to try it. You won't be disappointed. Thanks for watching. Remember, hit that like, subscribe button, share this recipe with your friends, make it for your family.